SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
SBC Americas has been back on the litigation beat in recent weeks after a case between a former employee and employer came to light. DraftKings sued its former SVP of Growth, Michael Hermalyn, after accusing him of plotting to steal company secrets and move over to rival operator Fanatics, just days before Super Bowl 58, the biggest betting day in the US calendar. Hermalyn has denied these claims, and the Massachusetts District Court ruled that he can work for Fanatics, but he's prohibited from using DraftKings information and intel. But this case raises questions about non-compete clauses in contracts and how sportsbooks can protect themselves from competitors taking their staff. And this will be the first half of today's episode of iGaming Daily, sponsored by Optimove. And then in the second half, we'll hear from SBC News' Viktor, who sat down with Betsson's CEO Pontus Lindwall to go through the firm's latest financial results. I'm joined by Charlie Horner, who is a media manager now at SBC. Used to be a former senior journalist on SBC Americas. I am not Jessica Wellman, as you can tell. She's sunning it up on a cruise, I believe, and I'm quite jealous of you, Charlie.
Yeah, it's all right for some, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's a well-deserved break for Jess, but we're glad to have you on with me, James.
I don't know. I think Jess brings more of the sunshine and rainbows and the US expertise than I do. And I'd like to say enjoy your cruise, Jess, but don't enjoy it too much. That's all I'll say. Well, no, we're going to talk DraftKings and this case, really. And Charlie, I'm just going to... This is kind of your area now, so can you just explain what has happened in DraftKings v. Hermalyn and why did this come to court?
Sure. So, Michael Hermalyn, as you said quite rightly earlier, was the SVP for growth at DraftKings. So he was in a very commercially driven role there, and it was announced that he was moving over to Fanatics, who, of course, as we've documented on this podcast over the last 12 months, has been making a big splash into the sports betting industry, launching in a staggered manner throughout 2023 and really trying to grow and scale up in 2024 to try and catch up on market share with DraftKings and FanDuel. So as you can probably imagine, there's a lot of competition between DraftKings and Fanatics already. Mm-hmm. And so for Fanatics to poach such a key member of the DraftKings team, again, like you said, a few weeks before the Super Bowl, you can understand why DraftKings may have grievances with this, especially if they had suspicions that Hermalyn had stole work products to share with Fanatics, which could put them in an exposed position, I guess. So DraftKings claimed that Hermalyn had accessed and stolen confidential spreadsheets related to its VIP plans ahead of the Super Bowl. So how it would contact and communicate with its VIP customers ahead of the Super Bowl. Obviously, if that was to be the case, that would give Fanatics a significant advantage. Therefore, DraftKings took a claim to the court to try and essentially block Hermalyn from being able to take up his new role with Fanatics.
Yeah, I'm looking at the article now for that Jessica Wellman produced for SBC Americas, and all of it seems a bit... What's the right word? Maybe a little petty. I mean, obviously the VIP things is a bit of a concern, but the fact of in the suit, DraftKings alleges that Hermalyn lied about the death of a friend and took personal leave at the end of January. I mean, it's a bold claim to accuse someone of doing that. it just seems a bit schoolground, if I'm being honest. And also, like, Fanatics, they haven't been named in the suit, but even their response to this is just sour grapes. That's a strong kind of opening statement for a response to this.
I think you're absolutely right, James. I think it is. It's all a bit of he said, she said. It's very schoolground-esque. DraftKings claim that DraftKings claimed that Hermalyn tried to establish a residency in California very quickly in a rushed manner over the space of a weekend. The interesting thing about that, and the thing that would be relevant to this case, is that California is one of a handful of states in which the non-compete clause in an employee's contract is illegal. It's not valid in California.
Oh, okay.
So they claim that it would be if he established residency in California, he could get around his non-compete clause, which would have stopped him from being able to work in the gaming sector for a year after leaving the company. So essentially on a gardening leave, if you like.
Okay. So it all seems a bit coincidental that he happened to move to California around this time.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to cast assertions or be. I'm not a judge, James. I'm just a meager journalist trying to understand this story. So I will not cast judgment on this. But DraftKings would say that it's all a little bit too coincidental that occurred. Hermalyn, on the other hand, has said that he didn't know about the offer until just a few weeks ago. Apparently, Michael Rubin, who is the CEO of Fanatics, offered him a job at the end of January when they met in Pennsylvania. And he also, denies that he purposefully stole the spreadsheets, and he said in his personal statements to the courts that he gave up his phone to one of his lawyers and bought a new personal phone when he switched roles to avoid any of these legal problems. So this case was brought to the Massachusetts District Court, and there has been an initial judgment which says that Hermalyn can go and work for Fanatics, but you cannot do certain things. You can't use DraftKings intel, can't use information to do with any of his customers, DraftKings customers, that is, or any of their partners. And interestingly, he also can't solicit any employees, advisors, or consultants to leave their post with DraftKings at all. So whether that's to Fanatics or to anyone else. So it seems to be a little bit of a compromise, which often does tend to happen in these sort of legal cases. But it seems like the sensible resolution.
Can you think of like any other high-profile instances where kind of competitors have clashed, so to say, or locked horns over key kind of personnel talents?
One spring to mind. James, you're a Manchester United fan, and Jim Ratcliffe has just been ratified as the new partial owner of Manchester United, and they've poached.
Saviour.
Sorry?
Lord Jim the Saviour.
Indeed, if you're so inclined. But no, they have just appointed Omar Barada as their new chief executive, of course, formerly of Manchester City. So Barada will not take his role with United until the summer, I believe, or later in the year, whilst he's on gardening leave with Manchester City. And that's presumably because he knows insider information about City's transfer plans, what they're doing with negotiating new contracts and that kind of thing. So Manchester City obviously don't want him to go over to the red side of Manchester and share all that information and try and scupper some transfers and that kind of thing. And, that's why these kind of non-compete clauses exist. And that's why companies try and protect themselves. And I guess sports betting and the sportsbook business is no different, really.
Yeah, and you've touched on a kind of an interesting point of why these companies put these non-competes in there to protect themselves. But how can operators put further measures kind of in place to protect their insider information and company secrets?
I guess
more in a US perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not obviously not a lawyer or a privy into employee law and that kind of thing, but I guess it would just be a case of having robust processes in place to ensure that when you're onboarding staff, you ensure that they don't or they're contractually obliged not to share sensitive information with people, and maybe have those sort of non-compete clauses in contracts and being able to enact gardening leave and that kind of thing when the time arises and people move on, because inevitably people do move on. But it's just a case of protecting your information, especially when it's sensitive roles like SVP of growth, people who are working with the VIP customers. Those are very, very sensitive pieces of information for sportsbooks, because we know that those VIP customers are so crucial to the profitability of these operators, and they want to do everything they can to make sure that those VIP customers are their VIP customers and not their one of their biggest challengers, VIPs.
Yeah, and just back to the DraftKings and Fanatics case, and maybe just looking a bit more forward with this. I've stated it seems it's not a good look, I don't think, for DraftKings. There's obviously the big allegation with the VIP information, but then they're bringing up a lot of other, probably more personal allegations against Hermalyn. I don't know if it's throwing things to make it stick or trying to build a case against him to rewind what's happened. But is this now the end? Because obviously the Massachusetts District Court have said that he can work for Fanatics, just prohibited from using DraftKings information. Is this now the end of this case, or can we expect any further action from this? Because again, it's not just the VIP allegations against Hermalyn, it's inappropriate conduct with female employees and so forth.
So yeah, a lot of this is sort of coming to a close, but it's not finished just yet. So as part of the case, DraftKings also requested an expedited discovery, and that has been granted to a certain extent.
What's an expedited recovery, sorry?
This would allow DraftKings to we essentially look at the information that he has and test whether he did steal the downloaded spreadsheets. So the court said that Hermalyn didn't need to produce a list of work products that the initial DraftKings claim said, but they will be allowed to depose him for 4 hours, and in return, Hermalyn's legal team can depose the head of IT at DraftKings for 4 hours as well. So that needs to be done by March the 7th, and then there will be a motion hearing in April. So this has got a few weeks left to rumble on. And I guess, I think it will spark further debate about non-compete clauses in the industry, and it's potentially something that we'll discuss further on this podcast and probably on SBC Americas in long-form depth in the written mode as well.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a nice little segue into to this half of the show. Like Charlie said, Jessica Wellman and her team at SBC Americas will be continue to cover this story, and we'll probably talk, and Jess will probably talk more about this as well and offer more insight than I can definitely give. I'm not afraid to admit my US knowledge is nothing compared to Jessica Wellman. But yeah, for any information, keep an eye out on SBC Americas and also iGaming Daily. Charlie, we're going to leave now. Well, both of us are going to leave. Thank you for joining us for the first half of the show. And then for the listeners, it's not over yet. So if you join us after the break, like I mentioned in the intro, Viktor Kayed, the business journalist at SBC News, is sat down with Pontus Lindwall, the CEO of Betsson, to go over their latest financial results that were released this morning. Stay tuned.
Brazil, a global economic powerhouse, deeply passionate about sports, and now home to one of the hottest markets in gaming. And we're giving it the full SBC treatment. Join industry leaders, market experts, and all the major players in the country for 3 days of content, exhibition, and epic networking at the first ever SBC Summit Rio.
So, hi Pontus, I want to congratulate you on a very successful year for Betsson. I was on the company call today, and you shared some very interesting statistics. Record numbers for customer deposits, operating cash flow, record numbers all around. How do you summarize this achievement? Can you tell us a bit more what is Betsson's secret sauce?
Yes, it was, as you said, a very strong quarter, which was finishing off a very strong year. It was a record quarter for us and the best year ever for Betsson. And it's been a good year. We've been doing well in most of the markets. And I think, I don't think there is a special secret sauce. It's just that we work hard. We work as a team, even though we are 2,200 persons. And when we do that, we manage to create good results.
Good. Sounds like a well-oiled machine over there. Your results show that new market growth is outpacing performance in legacy markets such as the Nordics. Do you think this is sustainable, and can Betsson home markets, in particular Sweden, return to growth, do you think?
I think we have on purpose put more of our efforts into new markets where we see higher potential going forward, and especially larger markets. Sweden is like 10 million people. It's a crowded market with 70 different operators. And we are now putting a lot of focus into some other European markets, and even more so into the LATAM region, where we see high potential going forward and larger markets.
We're going to go to LATAM in a few seconds. Back to Sweden, I wanted to ask you something that interests me very much. Are you on board with the proposed July tax hikes? I'm sure you've heard of it in Sweden. And will this have a significant impact on Betsson's financial performance in the second half of this year?
Yes, that tax increase is going to happen. The tax is going to go from 18 to 22%, which is quite a big rise, actually. Fortunate enough for Betsson, we don't have a very large part of our revenues from Sweden. It's some 3% or something like that. So it will not have a big impact for us. But more importantly, I don't think it's a very good move for the industry, because it's already quite a big part of the internet gaming market in Sweden, which are playing outside of the regulation with unlicensed operators. And as the licensed operators will become even less competitive in terms of ability to buy marketing and, creating good offerings for the customers, it will not be good for the channelization in Sweden.
Okay, I understand that. All right, and I'm going to take you to South America. How are you viewing regulatory developments there? And can you talk a bit more about the Brazilian tax and the Chile's yet to be settled online gambling regime?
Yes, in general, we are optimistic that they are regulating in LATAM, and they're doing that in many different tracks, but more or less in parallel in many countries, which we see very positive. in Peru, I guess we're going to start paying taxes quite soon, actually. And Brazil, I don't know. Brazil has been a very bumpy way up till regulation. So let's see when that kicks in. And you also asked about Chile. That one is a very, I would say, it's not a very competitive set of regulations in the way that it's very tough for any operator to be able to run a competitive business based on that proposal. But it's still a proposal. It's going to be debated, and let's hope that it will change for the better.
Mm-hmm. And staying in Brazil, 140 operators have already expressed interest in joining the market. Can you tell us why will Betsson be in the podium place of the market?
I can't promise that we will be in the podium place even, but it's a very large market, and I think there are room for plenty of operators. So we will see how it plays out. But from what you are saying, it sounds that it's going to be quite crowded on the operator side.
All right. Well, overall, you expect Brazil to be the next big thing in LATAM, I'm imagining.
Yeah, but in parallel with other countries as well. Of course, Brazil stands out in the way that it's a very large country, but there are other interesting markets as well. So we have a little bit of a broader view on that region.
Mm-hmm. All right. And the results today add up to a few consecutive years of growth in otherwise difficult times for your competitors. Are you positive that Betsson can maintain this momentum, or do you have to manage all-round expectations?
We have been very successful for the past 2 years, and as you said, we have had 8 consecutive quarters of growth, which is quite rare and unusual. But this means that we are in a good shape as a company. We have the machine is working. Everything is in order. We have a good balance sheet, that gives us ability to do M&A and to invest in new markets and all sorts of activities to maintain growth. I don't believe that we will be on a road without any bumps or troubles going forward, but I think that we are in a good position to perform well also in the future.
Mm-hmm. All right. And on that note, why should we be eyeing Betsson developments in 2024? You're a company that celebrates 6 years in business, after all.
Yeah. So what was the question? What you should expect from us during this year?
Why should the eyes be on Betsson for the upcoming year?
Yeah, I think the eyes should be on Betsson because what I just mentioned, we are a group that is very hungry to keep on growing. We have our organization in very good shape. We are more or less global, and we have a lot of great initiatives that we are working on that we hope will materialize in 2024 and onwards.
You mentioned on the company call today, that earlier this morning, that your technology is in order. Can you share a bit more about some investments that you're planning on making in terms of technology in this year, or this is something that will become obvious as we go into 2024?
Running a gaming company is pretty much like running a technology company. It's a constant work with developing technology, and we will continue to invest strongly in our tech development as we have done so far. But in 2024, we have a few big championships in soccer coming up, and that always means that we get some extra pressure on the technology. We're going to make sure that we can handle that, which we have managed to do in previous championships and big tournaments. So we are in good shape, and we will keep on investing in technology to become even better.
The sports events that you just mentioned, I'm guessing you refer to the Euros 2024.
Yes.
All right. Well, big times ahead, obviously. Let's hope it's going to be another successful year for Betsson. We wish you all the luck. And thank you for your time today, Pontus. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.